My name is Mr. E, and there's a lot of things that's going on today that's just coming to the forefront to the rest of the world that I as a 48-year-old Moorish American male, um, classified beforehand as a Negro, Black, Colored, African American, so forth and so on. All of those are just government names for chattel property. And as long as and the rest of us, so-called African American, Negro, Colored, Black, blase, blase, woo, woo, woo. As long as we come under those subtitles, we're subhuman. And nobody, nowhere has to respect someone who doesn't respect himself first. This ain't one of those what about black on black crime things. So because the only reason we have black on black crime is because we're like rats in a maze and we're all stuck in the same hole. So of course we're going to be killing each other with limited resources and tricked out economy and white supremacy on top of white supremacy, which should have been what I said first, white supremacy. White supremacy is what fuels this whole economy, what fuels this whole world. He's afraid of the black God man who doesn't know himself. And as long as he keeps you disattached from your true self, who is the God of this universe, I mean the forebearers of civilization, you carry the torch, I mean flame and steel, to Europe. But they were eating chickens like they catch them and they just bite them right there. They had no fire. They didn't cook anything. They had no way to cut it. With stones maybe, but they didn't have any swords. They didn't have any steel. They lived in the Dark Ages. And they duplicated the Dark Ages during our time of slavery. Which is pretty much is what my whole point is. That's what I'm bringing us all to today. Slavery. If, according to the European, the descendants of slaves and the slaves themselves built this whole country for nothing. I mean, it paid us nothing. We built the Washington Mall according to the Europeans. We worked for 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, from can't see in the morning to can't see at night. And the pay was cornbread and water. They called it corn and pole. And they say we should pick ourselves up by our bootstraps and stop complaining about slavery that ended, according to the Europeans, in 1865. And you and I are no different. Slavery was reinvented after 1865. It went from being a slave on the plantation owned by just that one plantation owner to becoming a federal slave, meaning that you lost all your rights. You never had any rights because you become disenfranchised. Your forefathers who were here long before Christopher Columbus, never even came to this land. They never made it to the continental, what they call the United States. The United States is a foreign corporation. They are immigrants. This is our land. We were here long before Cristobal Colon, any slave ship. The first two slave ships, the good ship Jesus and the Amazing Grace. On the slave ships, the slave owner, the captain of the ship, took both male and the first male and female, named them Adam and Eve. It's that story they gave us about Adam and Eve and have us worshiping white idols. Bookman said, Bookman, who went to jail before the Haitian Revolution, the day before the Haitian Revolution, said, take that white demon, I'm paraphrasing, said, if you get rid of that white god, that white idol, you will be free. So I wanted you to understand that the fight that we got shouldn't be a non-violent protest, laying down in the street, having die-ins and raising our hands saying, I can't breathe, and whatever he was saying, that, and I can't breathe, and no justice, no peace. We don't need any peace. The only way you're going to get peace is to have justice. You're never going to have peace in a land where you've been declassified as a human being. Let's get into that a little bit. I'm an advocate for reparations, for repairing our government, repairing our nation. Even though we may be divided, we got one thing in common. We are not white. Okay? If you are not white, if you are not a white male, this system is not designed for you. The Constitution that they constantly talk about was written when you were a slave. It was written by white Masons, European slave owners. And it was all about keeping your history from you and keeping you enslaved for them. And your children's children, and your children's 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 children. Because you cannot die. Now, I wanted you to hear something. I'll let you hear this. This is a speech by Martin Luther King right before he died. Right before he died. Listen. Sorry about that. Here we go.
That they always leave out about Dr. King. Listen to this. This is Dr. King right before he died. At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with. And this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we're coming to get our check. Woo! That's Dr. King right there. Did you hear that? Now, y'all really hear that?
Did you hear that? So we should be asking for reparations. Repair our government. Repair our nation. We don't have to be property of the United States, ruled under foreign jurisdiction. The reason why the police are killing you, killing me, is because they work for the rich property owners, the big banks, and they're policing their property. That's what policemen do. They're not doing anything that they adjust, they feel like, hey, let me get a job as a policeman so I could kill black people. No, they get a job as a policeman because they work for a company that's insured and bonded, that's guaranteeing them, different types of life insurances and different things. That it's only for the European male. Let me put it like that, so I don't keep stumbling over my words. I want you to hear something else, because we got these preachers that's telling us, let's pray for peace, and uh, they got in between the children out there, who I would call, I'm 48 years old, so I'll say the next generation of our young, my daughters and grandchildren. They got them out there talking about peace. Hey, we're getting killed. If a policeman was to get shot, remember that black policeman in California who he was mad about something they did to him on the job, and he went there and he killed a couple of them. They chased him down. It was all over the news everywhere until they caught him and killed him. They didn't protest silently. They didn't tell him you can't be. You can protest as long as you do it silently and non-violently. But they got drones that's killing suspected terrorists. They don't even know if they're terrorists. If it's 4 or 5 guys on a truck in Afghanistan or Syria or someplace like that. And this is what the U.S. government says itself, that they bomb suspected terrorists with drones. Nobody's unmanned aircraft from inside of a mountain where they sit. And these are cowards. And so it's like Freddy Krueger. Once you face your enemy, according to the Bible, if you face the devil, resist the devil, he will flee from you. So right now they got people who can't even comprehend that we get stopped by the policeman like that, or that racism even exists today. How come we haven't moved past slavery? What world do they live in? It's a completely different world than the world that you and I live in, except for we promulgate their society. I'm going to say like New Year's, you celebrate New Year's, and then Valentine's, then Easter, and then spring and all that. You celebrate every holiday that they celebrate. Holiday is a holy day in your ancient tradition. But we're talking about how the moon transits. If it's waning or waxing, if it's a new moon or first quarter, full moon, last quarter. That's what we're talking about. Different types of moons. And what they call today the Wiccan religion. Yuletide carol, talking about Yuletide. They're talking about, holly bushes and evergreen trees. They're talking about the worship of Saturnalia, or the god Saturn, Kronos, the god, father of time, the Lord of the Rings. So these people live in a different type of world than you and I live in, because no one ever taught us none of that. We didn't pay attention to Greek mythology or Norse mythology or Egyptian mythology, whatever you want to call it. We never learned that. We just got caught up in ourselves, and we're the guys who fell here and saw the women were beautiful and just wanted to have sex. So we became reduced like the beasts of the field. There's a guy, Henry Berry, 1831, the House of Congress of Virginia. He said that, and I'm going to try to quote him, but I may paraphrase a little. He said for sure that, sir, we have as far as possible erased all the light that might enter into a Negro's mind. And if they had the capacity to extinguish the light itself, they would. And he said the reason was for a plea of necessity. That it was necessary for him to erase all the light that might enter your mind. Erase all the light that might enter your mind. And he says, we have reversed nature. And that they have made the gods, they have reduced the gods to the beasts of the field. All we think about is partying and sex and going to funerals. You know, that's part of life to us. Go to a party, bull, you know, pretend like we got the Holy Ghost at church. It's all fictitious. The older sisters and the older brothers, we just need to tell them. We need to come out and straight tell them you can't get no reparations when as long as you worshiping white idols. As long as the white man know that you worshiping him, he's never gonna see you as no real person, as no person. One of the Savras, Murray Amun, loved by God, Amun, son of God, chosen by God, the first man to walk on the planet. He worships you. Oh, they would love to be LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. They would love to be either one of them. They just can't. They are soulless. Let me let you hear this about those of us that think, well, why would we cry reparations or repair me? Please repair me. This is a speech by my beloved Marcus Garvey.
Not WEB, the war and his blue vein society, nobody. The history of the movement is now being written. Do you know what history is? History is the guidepost of a race. It is the inspiration for succeeding generations either to move forward or stand still, either to revenge or be revenged. I had a motive and a purpose. It was a crying voice from the grave that said, "Yahweh, we have suffered for 250 years for your day and time. We expect something of you at this hour." The prejudice against us as an African people is not because of color. It's because of our condition. We must. The prejudice against us as an African people is not because of color. It's because of our condition. If we must have justice, we must be strong. If we must be strong, we must come together. If we must come together, we can only do so through the system of organization. But to fight for African redemption does not mean that you must be disloyal to any government or country wherein you were born. It is not our purpose or intention to send all black people back to Africa. No! Those of us who leave America to go settle permanently in Africa will become pioneers, pilgrim fathers of the new nation. The African race became strong in Africa. It could be strong everywhere.
I'm sorry it ended like that, but Marcus Garvey said, what a cowardly race of people. There were over 3,000 people lynched in the 1920s to from the early 1900s to like the 1940s, late 1940s. They were lynched not because they were black. No. They were lynched because they were prosperous. Oh yeah, prosperous. Meaning that they jumped into what they thought the American dream was, and they were becoming successful, too successful for the superior class of people in this land. The Albions. If you mix the word up a little bit, you'll see it's just a play on letters. They're albinos. who don't have, whose pineal gland, I would say, is calcified and it doesn't secrete melanin. So they have decreased pigmentation, no melanin in their skin. The pineal gland is the substratum of the universe. I mean, the substratum meaning it is a support system. It holds up the entire, it is therefore the universe, the dark matter. So when they say we don't matter, you do matter. But you are not matter. You are a spirit. Because you're in this flesh, you are suffering melancholia, a depression of the spirits. I'll show you. According to the dictionary, their dictionary, melancholia means depressing of the spirits. You are a spirit man who is suffering this experience, from that perspective. Only. It's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's a karmic debt, which just means that because something happened, is this the effect of. It's not good or bad. Those are two sides of like day and night, right and wrong, here and there. There's nothing wrong with it. The word I'm looking up is melancholia. Okay, let's see if we can see this. Can you see this? Let me try it again. Melancholy. Melancholy. I can't focus in on it, but I'll read it for you. It says, a gloomy state of mind, especially when habitual or prolonged depression, sober thoughtfulness, pensiveness, archaic, the condition of having too much black bile, considered in ancient and medieval medicine to cause gloominess and depression. Black bile, affected with, characterized by, or showing melancholy, mournful, depressed, a melancholy mood, causing melancholy or sadness, saddening, soberly thoughtful, pensive. Now, we're going to go to the word melancholia, because melancholy is what we do every day. Melancholia is what we suffer for having melanin. You are a God man who fell here, created by the Elohim, which is called creative fate. 7 Elohim created us to pay a karmic debt and to experience the physical, which is only an illusion, to see how we would react or act, whether we would act out of thought and perception or out of feelings and emotions. Melancholia, it says, a mental condition characterized by great depression of spirits and gloomy forebodings. Endogenous depression. See, melancholy. Okay. Okay. Can you believe it? Now, if you are a spirit, if you are therefore a spirit inside of the flesh, let's see a good way that I could illustrate for you. Those of you who've seen Men in Black, the first Men in Black, they said that the galaxy was on Orion's belt. Orion was a cat, but in that movie, Orion was a cat, and it had this little galaxy around his neck. The cat's name was Orion, according to Amos chapter 5, verse 8, and King James's version of the Bible. It says, "Seek him that maketh the seven stars in Orion." Orion is a Greek name for Osar. Osar became Osiris to the Greeks and Romans. To Aleister Crowley, he became Sonorificis. So, and Aleister Crowley and his white magic, whatever they want to call it, Golden Dawn magic, they stole all of your information. Solomon, in Solomon's temple. Solomon is the first three names of God. Sol is the sun. On is Saqqara in Egypt, the city of Heliopolis, or the city of the sun. The god was On. Solomon. Amun is who the last part. Amun, Amun, Amen, is the guy that permeates all of the so-called dark matter. That's what we breathe in. Amen. Amen. That's the guy that permeates everything. So, the Europeans stole the story of the Immaculate Conception. They had no God to come to them. They had no messenger of God whatsoever to come to them, unless it was Tariq, who crossed the Straits of Gibraltar in 711, and because he had been visited by the Visigoths, who had been fighting against the Vandals, who defeated Rome, who couldn't talk. Not couldn't talk, I mean they couldn't read. They were unlearned men, according to the Romans, who had a Roman Empire was the last great empire that ruled the world. So the so-called United States have taken all the empires that have fallen and, let's say, masses, mixed them all up together here through a form of miscegenation, let's put it like that, mulattoism, where they grafted everyone else's history, which all boils right back down to who you are. The God who walked from the triple stage of darkness. Let me read something else to you. It's called the Tree of Life. And and it was written by these European guys who do magic. They were just talking about an illustrated study in magic, the Tree of Life. And in the Tree of Life, I can let you see that. That's what that will show. The Tree of Life. Okay. The Tree of Life, an illustrated study in magic by Israel Regardi. In this book, he goes on, he literally tells us who the gods are. Let's see, the gods. Hold on, boy. There you go. Okay, here goes the gods right here. This is the gods. So look at chapters. Chapter 6. The gods. All right. First page. What does it say the gods are? The first page, let me read a little bit of that to you. So you could see you the first person on the planet, the black man and woman. Back up there. Read this to you right quick. Sorry about the inconvenience. There we go. Lee Wallace Budge is supposedly, according to the European, he's the grandfather of Egyptology. Well, there's no Egyptology in my mind. The study of my people, Egypt, this is an ongoing study because we are the gypsies, we are the Negroes, the African Americans, so-called Negro slave, more man over here right now. E. Wallace Budge prefers the defense, for although the uneducated loved of a plurality of gods, the priests and educated classes who could read and understand books adopted the idea of one God, the creator of all beings in heaven and on earth, who, for want of a better word, were called gods. And it goes on to say, that from it come forth all the gods, all human souls and spirits, and every conceivable thing that is in some way incomprehensible to our finite understanding. The negative and passive energy, homogeneously scattered throughout the space, became enlivened, forming itself into primeval active centers which, with the passions of aeons of time, expanded and gradually evolved into the cosmos. With these centers, the first manifestations, there sprang from the latent homogeneity, a heterogeneous group of divine entities, or cosmic intelligent forces who became the architects and builders of the universe. From their own individual spiritual essence, lesser hierarchies were born, and these in turn emanated or created from themselves yet other groups until eventually the human souls came into being, the reflected offspring of the blessed gods. The intelligent forces have been variously named gods, demons, universal essences, Dayan, Chokans, Aeons, Telarchic, and many other names. Now, that's not the part I wanted to tell you, but now that you know, that's another way the European is saying that. That's how we came into existence. But I'm going to show you where they also said that you was the first man to walk on the planet. It says, corresponding with the Kabbalist Kether, or the crown, Ptah is the Egyptian deity, the meaning of whose name is the opener. According to Egyptologists, this seems to have been a stumbling block in their classification, for in the event that he is assumed to be associated with the opening of the day by the sun, singularly enough, he never forms one of the important groups of the sun gods in the hieratic text. In the Book of the Dead, what they call the Book of the Dead is actually the book of coming forth by day, which means that we will metamorphosize, is what it's saying. Come forth by day, yeah, something is going to come forth by day. But though how the sunlight refracts the blood in our body, it's going to trigger a metamorphosis. Okay. So it says, in the book of coming forth by day, his attributes bear not the slightest relationship to Re, Kepler, and Tum, the gods connected with the rising, setting, and midnight obscuration of the sun. With the outline of the magical philosophy, however, it is not at all difficult to see in what sense Ptah is named the opener, because his appearance inaugurated or commenced a cycle of cosmic manifestation. Is he so named, and it is he who is the hidden logos, the central metaphysical essence from which everything was given birth. Ptah opens the evolutionary cycle, but it was he who, issuing from the thrice unknown darkness, is the great architect of the universe, giving together with Thoth and Isis. Isis is Oset. That's a Greek name for the god Oset, who is our mother, the Black Madonna. They gave birth to manifested things. So, in what they call the magic, here is a picture of the god Osar and his wife Oset. In the magic book, this book is called The Tree of Life, Israel Regardie, on page 125 is a picture of the god Osar and Oset. They have them named Isis and Osiris, but it's Osar and Oset. The goddess Oset is the mother of God. This is the god Ptah, fashioned in the egg of the world. The same Ptah that I told you from the triple stage of darkness. It's a brother. Clearly a brother. Fashioned in the egg of the world on a potter's wheel. Listen to their description of the goddess Isis. Chakma is also called the sphere of the fixed stars. Isis, Oset, corresponding to Bina, was regarded as a parent of the universe, the mother of God. Isis, according to them, Oset, and ancient Comedian. She was regarded as a parent of the universe, the first offspring of the ages, ruler of the sky, the sea, and all things on earth, and was a supernal mother whom the whole of the ancient world worshipped under many names. The Greeks call it the Theotokos, the veneration of the black mother and child. The Greeks had no problem with you being with Madonna, with Osar, Oset, and Heru. They had no problem with it. They just changed the gods' names to Kronos, Zeus, Apollo, that jazz, which is just names for the planets, which are the Elohim. There's 7 of them. Saturn is the Lord of the Rings. It's a big planet like the sun. The sun just seems to be big because that stuff about us revolving around the sun and all that stuff, I don't believe none of that. None of it. I think the sun is inside our atmosphere, or whatever they call our atmosphere, because the reason why I'm saying that, because I let my soul think, reason, understand, and remember as it wills. If they're going to outer space, the exact opposite of outer space is inner space. Just because adept with vocabulary. And I know that all the words is just a play on words. Hades, for instance, the Greek god Hades, that's a play on the word shade. Just check it out. Now, back to the story of Osar. It was in connection with the Queen of Heaven, as a compassionate and omnipotent mistress of both worlds, that she drew to herself a great crowd of devotees and sincere votaries. To briefly summarize buds concerning her, Miss A.E. Wallace buds, concerning her, we may state that Isis, Osar, Oset, was considered the great and beneficent mother whose influence and love pervaded all heaven and earth, and the abode of the dead, and she, being the personification of the great passive reproductive power which conceived immaculately, and brought forth every living creature and everything. What she brought forth, she protected, cared for, fed, and nourished. She employed her own life in using her power graciously and successfully, not only creating new things, but in restoring those that were dead. She was, besides all these things, the highest type of faithful and loving wife and mother. It was in this capacity that the Egyptians honored and worshipped her most. According to the now familiar legend, which is not familiar to you and I, no one told us this. No one ever let us know. Osar, who is the 7 stars in the sky, heaven, right now. You see the 3 stars of Orion's belt, 2 stars above them, and 2 stars below them. And those are 7 stars that make the constellation of Orion. But there are several other stars in the constellation. Directly beneath, depending on what time of year it is, you'll see the Dog Star Sirius directly beneath the 3 stars in Orion's belt. The Dog Star Sirius blinks red, white, and blue all the time. Osiris, her husband, was slain through the cunning of his brother Typhon, or Set, emblematic of the destructive aspect of nature, and his body thrust into a box which, after being thrown into the Nile, was carried out to sea. After a long, wearisome search, Isis found it. This is metaphysically saying that you were being born out of the water. You were put into a box with 72 pieces, which are the Goetia, according to those cats, Solomon, the Goetia spirits that are inside of you. Because you are a demon, angel, demon, lesser, higher, negative, positive, right and wrong. That's what you are. That's what I am. There's a lower me who is the devil, who acts irresponsibly out of emotions, out of carnal nature. And there's a higher me who thinks and reasons, but he acts intuitively, and rarely instinctively. So tell you the story about him coming from the triple state of darkness. So in this book, they speak of our gods and they speak of the Greek gods, Typhon and Set. There's Osar and Seth. Osar had a brother named Seth, and Set is the devil in Christian lore, and Osar is God in Christian lore. And the devil in Egyptian lore killed his brother, cut him up into 72 pieces, of some stories 14 pieces, and threw him into put him in a box. The story went that um, Set had a big party for Osar, and at the party he introduced what they call it. It's a casket, is what it really was. But I don't know what they. I can't remember what they called it in the ancient Kemet, but it fit Osar perfectly. He got his dimensions. He called him to sleep or something and got his dimensions, and built the sarcophagus, is what the word was. Built the sarcophagus to meet his dimensions. So at the party, Set goes, I built this beautiful sarcophagus, and anybody who could fit in it, they could have it. Everybody thought it was so beautiful. They tried to fit in it, almost like the slipper in the fairy tale world. And whoever fit the slipper got married. Okay. Osar fit into the sarcophagus. As soon as he got in it, the conspirators, 72 conspirators, slammed the lid on it. Cut him up into 114 pieces. 72 pieces, I mean. Threw him into the Nile River. Osar, Oset, and Nephthys, so sister, Oset's sister, went to find, and Osar's sister, went to find his body parts to put him back together. They couldn't find his phallic, or his penis. So there weren't any children on the planet at all. These were the last of what was called, all the first beings. They never really actually were in the physical form, or they came to the physical form, or they could change forms, but there was no physical being on the planet yet, because these were called, according to ancient Egyptian, they called them the Ennead of Heliopolis. It was 9 gods that were born from Geb and Nut. Nut. The goddess Nut is the heavenly skies, and Geb is the earth. They had Osar, Set, Nephthys. Osar, Set, Nephthys, Osar, Oset, Nephthys, Set, Anubis, Hathor, I can't remember the 9 of them, but the Immaculate Conception to the physical being was because of the cut up body. Osar, Oset, and Nephthys put the body back together. There was no phallic. So, Oset is the goddess of Heka, which is magic with a K. Astrally protected herself above her husband, dead husband's penis in the astral world. Became inseminated in the astral world and brought the baby back to the physical world. And then she had the godchild Horus, who was his father, reincarnated. And he became a Saru, or Heru. word hero comes from. He conquered all beings, beasts, animals on the planet. Um, Also, it's called Hippocrates, if I'm not mistaken. Hippocrates, not Hippocrates. And he was a baby with his thumb in his mouth, sitting on the lotus plant. He's a little child inside of all of us like this. I've given instruction for years, but I've never, in front of a webcam by myself, spoken to myself. That's why it seems right now this is like my first time. I say it seems a little awkward right now, and I really don't have an outline. I'm just speaking from the mouth of truth. I'm going to come back to you guys with a more in-depth study of what our actual religion is, alchemy, alchemia in Arabic, which means the chemistry. When the Europeans first found the Moorish scientists, we were wizards, and we were changing base metals to gold. Base metals, I'm talking about aluminum, iron, sulfur oxide. Some people could make gold out of anything. And they kind of gave you a story, and they're made up with Rumpelstiltskin, that guy's name was Rumpelstiltskin. It means something, I'm not exactly sure, but I know that he was an L. And he could spin straw into gold. And the thing about Rumpelstiltskin is what he was still your baby if you couldn't tell his name. And so that's another lore about these elves. It's like Rumpelstiltskin was an elf. An elf is an L. It's plural, more than one L. You know how around the Yuletide of the year, which is just meaning the heliacal rising of the dog star, which will be at its highest point on the 25th of December. But at that time, the Europeans sing a carol. It's called the First Noel, and they symbolize it by XMAS, which is in Espanol means no más, no more, no L. They meant by that was that they had completely conquered the God-man, who was the forebearer of truth, the father of civilization. I mean, the first time ever civilized, millions of years ago. No one knows exactly when, so the time is of no essence. It's not significant because no one knows when time began. There never was a time that man began time. Man started the idea of time. When he got here, it wasn't time, there wasn't no time for him to get here. Time for him to be nowhere until he sat around and studied and mastered the stars in the universe until he could recognize a pattern. Then he established calendars and stuff on the events, phenomena that he had witnessed in the sky above. And it become circular patterns, let's say it like that. You know that at a certain degree, at a certain time, the sun will come up here, or that star will be located there, or this universe over here. He noticed that long before he ever said it's 1 o'clock. It took a long time to do that. So we don't live in the year 2014. That's in AD, and the Gregorian calendar. And Gregory was a pope, a Roman pope, because he didn't want the New Year to be like the Egyptian New Year on March the 21st when spring begins, where they say Jesus is 33. That's March the 21st. Spring begins at spring equinox. The sun goes back into the northern, to the eastern hemisphere, with its headed north. The European forced our illiteracy because when we were connected to the planet, we had power of telepathy, telekinesis, clairvoyance, clairaudience. Intuition was, we even knew that we were going to become slaves. We knew that. We had created an alter ego. The story of Yakub and that stuff, I guess it's metaphorically saying, because I don't know for sure about that myself personally. I don't know that to be true. So if it was true, I don't know. I can't say that part is true. But because I understand grafting in a different way, how the European claims to be, how he claimed to be Jesus, that's a graft. And how he claimed that he was the Egyptian, that's a graft. And how he claimed that's grafting. When you claim to be other than you are, and you graft yourself into the history of someone else because you don't have one, or his history is so much, his history predominates yours so much that you would rather be him. This is the latter is what I'm leaning more towards. We got to have a revolution, and it's nothing like what you think, because I play on the words. A revolution means literally a drastic a drastic change in the way you think and act in a variably short amount of time. I mean veritably. I mean a considerably, unknowingly amount of time. I mean 5 seconds overnight. The revolution means to stop being a Negro today and start being God today. There is no tomorrow. The only way is up. That means wake up. There's no one of us that's no better than the other. We all have sat around and watched them lynch our people left and right. And no one has stood up and done nothing. No one, the only person who really, that I give any kind of praise to for standing up for our people, literally, and just all out. The cat in New York who was on the train, I don't know his name, but he got on the train and he killed them people. And the DC snipers, yeah, they might have killed some black people, but in my mind, they freedom fighters. And any man who leads, like my brother Marcus Garvey told us a long time ago, any man who tells us that another man can help us out of this problem is a man who will lead you into slavery. Yeah, he said that they gave our forefathers the ability. We gave him. Said, hey, yeah, y'all could lead us, and they led us into slavery. And so we're not gonna let nobody lead us back into slavery. Not Al Sharpton, not those lawyers that's working for money, because neither one of them are mentioning your human rights. They're talking about you walking around, being able to go to the store and all that. You have human rights that must be recognized by you first. And then you find out which laws they're trying to govern you by, which are called general statutes. That don't work. It's not federal. You can't be a citizen of the United States, Dred Scott decision. You can't never be a citizen. The 14th Amendment said you can't never be a citizen. And they say they don't owe you for reparations, but they owe you for reparations. And we want our reparations. So you get with me, Mr. E, because I will be on here. The next time I get on, I'll be going into how we should demand our reparations. But right now, we should not spend any money with anybody. And we got over $1 trillion worth of spending power a year. Let's put that into a bank, into a credit union with just black people. No minority. We're not no minority. Anybody that's not so-called African American is not in our group. Puerto Ricans are in our group. They're blacks. They're just blacks that speak Spanish. They're the same thing. If they live in America, that's the alternative. Not Latinos, Mexicans. That's not the same. They have a nation. A Puerto Rican is a slave that just stayed out in the island. Dominicans, Haitians, Jamaicans, Barbadians, Grenadans, all of those in the Caribbean that have this melanin is our brother. Sect and Repra, chosen by God. And we don't have to do no fighting. The fighting is with ourselves to overcome our carnal thoughts and our idea of being a beast who is only naturally satisfied by, or never satisfied, let me put it like that, by his insatiable desire, which is just want, ask, and beg. So stop being cowards. Let's revolute. I tell you, the older people who who keep talking about Jesus is going to save us, some of them got to go. Those that keep talking about, let's go back to church, they got to go. Anybody that put anything in between us and our freedom, there is no God to help us. You are the God to help us. You are the God and I am the God. And all we need is that one thing in common, like everybody else got. Be on the same sheet of music. They fucking with us. They keep fucking with me, man. They stop fucking with me. They stop fucking with me, everybody.